Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Story Darlings podcast. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Tara.
And what are we talking about today, Tara?
We are talking about the end of the book, Heir of Fire. So part 2, and dear Lord, guys, there's a lot. A lot happens.
Part 2 is the aptly named Heir of Fire, as the title might suggest. And it does start with Adian having conversations with Chaol and just kind of this crew that they have that is staying at Celaena's apartment in Rifthold. I like that her crib has just become this crash pad for a bunch of dudes just strategizing about how to overthrow this empire. There's some interesting moments between Chaol and Adian because I think Chaol just looks at Adian and he just thinks of everything he wants to be is reflected back at him. Chaol has so much honor to a fault, and Adian is able to balance honor with doing the right thing, which is something that Chaol has struggled with, and Tara will endlessly fight.
Yes, I have notes, guys. I have notes again about Chaol. Everybody's on my side, as you've read in this book. You see a couple of the characters in this book let Chaol know that he's being silly.
Tara has many co-signers. Chaol and Adian and Ren and crew, they're talking about, they've been doing some geometry, pinpointing where the third point is where magic kind of evaporated to figure out what space like everything was. And so they do end up talking to some people that were stationed in a place called Amrith, which is located in the far northwest. And they determine that that is where the third spot was. There's a dark tower that was erected there. And so now they have all of the locations and they have put together the puzzle pieces of why this huge swath of the continent has been without magic. Then we cut scene over to the Farian Gap, where all these witches are just hating each other. They are duking it out. They are playing dirty. They are snipey and just nasty to each other. Manon is butting heads with the heir to the Yellowlegs clan Iskra. She goes on this fun little mission to get spider silk because poor little Abraxos, he just has the most shredded up, pathetic looking wings I can imagine and cannot fly. He cannot get airborne, and this is a huge problem and is becoming a point of disgrace for Manon. Her grandmother is already pissed off at her and very displeased with the choices that she's making. And so Manon's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go rogue and go find these giant spiders in these mountains to go get spider silk. And you want to talk a little bit about how that plays out, Tara?
Manon goes to these little spider people. I mean, I don't like spiders anyway, so it's creepy in general, but they're like, the leader is just very, very creepy. She's very like cryptic. You can tell she's been around a while, and she is trying to make a deal with Manon of like, what are you going to give me for these silks? And Manon is an evil genius. I think I'm just going to go out and say she's an evil genius because she ends up tricking the spider in saying that she needs to see the silk and make sure that it's up to her standards. And then she says, oh, it's not the best quality. Like, I don't think I should pay you that much. And then she just takes off with it. And she gets enough for what she needs. And she gives some to like the overseer that let her go to this place. And it's a really neat scene of seeing Manon. She's super smart. She's super conniving and manipulative and all of these things. Like we said, she's like very chaotic evil. Like, she's super smart, super evil though. Like, she's down for getting her way no matter the cost. You also see her like a little bit more of her heart because she's doing this to help Abraxos.
Poor pitiful Abraxos is melting her cold heart. So one of the things I liked about the exchange with Manon and the spider is you get the sense that whatever deal would have been struck, the spider mentions, I could ask for so many years of your life basically, but you know, what fun is that? Because you live forever. And then she was talking about, I could take some of your beauty. And then you get like Manon's internal dialogue because Manon is such a bad bitch. She's just like, you know what? I don't give a shit about my face or how I look. That isn't me. That's not how she defines herself. The spider can tell that she's not going to gain anything from that too. But I loved how that whole scene of Abraxos was just like shielding, you know, like her sidekick ready to bounce when she said the word. They have like this little connection where they're like almost reading each other's minds. And you see that play out back at the Farian Gap, like the mountain where they're all staying, because with all of this wing drama, with Abraxas not being able to fly, there's all kinds of shit hitting the fan and tension being created between Manon and her grandmother, Manon and the other witch clans, and bitch face Iskra of the Yellow Legs is like, oh, no. If a wyvern isn't listening to it, it's probably something with a trainer. And she takes it upon herself to crack a whip and starts beating Abraxas with it. And Manon does not appreciate that.
No, Manon loses her shit.
Doesn't she like tackle her and just start clawing her face? Iron nails out, just like going at it. And of course, that pisses off Grandma Blackbeak. You can't win with her. Like, she's such a nasty person. Nothing is good enough.
They even say during, like, I think it's later on, but there's a quote about how the witches were born without a heart. And then there's a quote later on about how they were taught to do that, indoctrinated into just not giving a shit. And they were forced to do that. And you see that a lot with Manon's grandmother.
Just because Manon is the assumed heir, she does not give her any shortcuts whatsoever. Like, if anything, she makes her work even harder. And it's pretty cruel how she is with her. But not all of the witches are that way. We get some really great moments with the Blue Bloods heir, Petra, and her wyvern, Keely. I think it's a female. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of shit going on in the Farian Gap. Like, everyone can tell something is wrong with the men that work there. Everything is wrong with the food. The food smells weird. Manon and the 13 end up just hunting for their own food and like eating whatever they catch and feeding it to their own wyverns because they don't want any part of what the hell is going on there. They just don't trust it at all.
Well, wasn't it Abraxas that noticed that first because he refused to eat? And so she had to go get him the goats. And so then when he started eating the goats, then they're like, wait, we'll just eat the goats too.
Abraxas is just so smart.
So there was another part, and I may have read too much into this, but they were talking about a spell that was cast. And I automatically, since we had just talked about the 3 towers and the spell, I automatically leapt to that conclusion that that's the spell that the witches were talking about. But they had mentioned that the spell was cast by the Kraken. That's why they were attacking or trying to find the Kraken witches, because they were trying to find the one that cast the spell. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, well, a spell that we've been talking about is the spell that took away magic. And I can see why the witches would want this spell, taken away too, because then they get their powers back as well. I'm wondering, and I think that we'll probably find this out in later books, obviously, maybe some foreshadowing of who did the spell and how we're going to get it taken back is the Kraken. And I said it right this time, so
You smartass. Yes, that is a great observation. Even the scene with the Kraken witch at the end, that was a crazy scene because on one hand, it's like, okay, Iron Teeth witches, like you're being a little, much here. And then you get the Kraken witch's perspective and she's just being nasty right back. That whole scene was supposed to be like, oh, Manon, your red cloak is getting a bit shabby looking.
Here's your reward.
Here's a reward, but you need to kill her to get it for yourself. Imagining Manon's life up until this point of just having to be that way to please her grandmother, and that's why she is the way she is. It's just another little brick in the wall on why she is this way. But meanwhile, back in Otterland, the king is taking measures to the next level. He is mass killing people. So in the previous book, Crown of Midnight, after Nehemia was murdered, there was a cutscene with a little slave girl in the Calcula mines and how this girl basically was like, fuck it. Nehemia's dead. I have no hope. I'm just going to kill my overseer and, take the punishment in my life. That inciting incident has now prompted this big, wide rebellion in all of these mines that are in the empire. The king's way of dealing with this was to just mass murder all of these slaves there. And he doesn't tell his son about it. He doesn't tell the captain of the guard about it. He just does it. And Chaol and Dorian find out about it, and there is hell to pay. Dorian is not happy about it. Dorian and Chaol got so close to Celaena and hearing her story and learning more about who she was and what she was about. And so it strikes a chord with them. I feel like from this point on, shit just starts happening really fast. In addition, like we saw at Holland's welcome home party in the previous book, that the singer that performed at his party was murdered behind the scenes. And now we see the Royal Theatre basically shut down, because in this book, they went and performed the songs from all of these countries that have experienced immense loss as a way to say fuck you to the empire and to the king. And the king is not happy about that. And basically everyone at the Royal Theatre disappears and the theater is shut down. So all of these very extreme things are happening now with the king growing in his power.
I was gonna say, we also see a lot of growth in Dorian and Kale during this time. Like, Dorian is getting closer with Sorsha, who is the healer. I don't want to say he's getting closer with Kale again, but they have started a little bit more of their friendship. There is a conversation between Dorian and Kale where Dorian basically calls Kale out about like his resentment for Celaena. More power to Dorian, because he actually sees that Kale still resents her. And even though Kale, he's more loyal to Dorian than the king now, because he's starting to see the king as a little bit evil, Dorian still says, you're resenting parts of Celaena, so you can't say you love her if you resent the darkness that is part of her. You need to get your shit together, basically. You can't be both ways. You can't resent her for a part of her and love her at the same time. I love that. And then immediately after, Adian also lights into Kale about going along with others and his loyalty. And he's more so about any of the loyalty. Like, you shouldn't just go along with Dorian because you're loyal to him. You shouldn't just go along with the king because you're loyal to him. You have to start thinking for yourself and kind of coming out of this indoctrination that you've been in. So you start seeing Kale come out of that a little bit.
Kale's answers to them are just so comical at this point, because he's like grasping at straws to try and like keep up his reasoning and his excuses for not playing, quote unquote. I love when Dorian's like, you can't pick and choose what parts of her to love. That's not how genuine love and care about a person works. You know what I mean? And then Adian's like, dude, at some point you have to pick a side. You can't just be a neutral middle. There is no neutral. You have to pick a side. And he gets the tough love conversation, both of them. And I loved it so much. Kale is not getting any brownie points still. He is just a little slow to learn the lessons and be a better version of himself.
He has the potential to be so much better than he's being currently. He has the potential, because you know deep down he's a good guy. And you know deep down he wants to do the right thing. He's just not doing it very well. And then we go back to Wendland, or the other continent, and we go back to Celaena. And one of my favorite scenes in this whole book is Celaena's memories of Adian, because we saw his memories of her in the last part. And then we get to see her memories of him and how she is so afraid that he is not gonna basically respect the person that she's become, because she's had to do bad things. And it's so cute seeing them both scared that the other one's going to think negatively about them because they've been forced to do things that they did want to do but had to. And you see her remembering them as little kids and him being her protector and standing up for her. And you know, that's such a sweet little love that they've got going on. We also see some more of that training that Rowan has Celaena going through, which at this point, dear Lord, just let her be. But she ends up almost burning herself out by trying to hold this flame open during a festival of some sort. I don't remember. I'm not up on these holidays like Sandra is, so I figured she'd remember the name of it. But so she is tasked with keeping the fires lit. In doing so, she finds a little too much joy in the fire and ends up almost burning herself out. And Rowan has to save her and get her cooled down. And it's a good mixture between them, because she like lets her fire out and he's like there to cool her down with the like ice water baths. But he takes her, he puts her in these ice water baths and then like cools them down, freezes them, and then when they get too warm, freezes them again and stuff. So he saves her, and in doing so gets burnt. And then we see a very comical scene of her putting his tattoos back on him that she burnt off, and like trying to figure out like why he has these tattoos, and like just giving him crap about it basically. And again, I love this snarky side of Celaena that just likes to give people crap.
I'm just going to put out there that if someone asked me to tattoo their body, I am going to have to hard pass that unless they are sure that they want like kindergarten level doodles on their body. So Rowan has a lot of trust in Celaena to be like, hey, finish my tats. No, anytime there's like a scene and it's like her practicing her fire or trying to shield and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, a cool breeze like caress the back of her neck or something, I'm like, oh, is that you, Rowan? Is that you?
Are you sending that wind?
Are you doing something here?
And then it's the action part of the book where there is a battle that breaks out. And we find out that this battle is of those creatures that she has had run-ins with so far. And then we see who they are and what they are during this battle. One of the things that we find out is that they are very similar to the creature that she killed in the underground dungeon in the Glass Castle. So she is noticing that they are very similar. There's just something a little different because these people on this island are cognizant and they are just a little bit more together. They can think, they can, strategize. Whereas the creature that she faced didn't have that ability. So she is figuring out that the defective one is the one that she killed. And she's like, oh shit, he almost took me out and he was defective. So like these ones are going to be harder to fight because they're not defective. And she asks Rowan to ask his friends, so as she calls him, his little cat friend or his little cat buddy or whatever.
Kitty cat.
Yes, his other friends to come help the people of this little outpost that are about to get attacked. And at first he's like, no, because he's afraid of what Maeve is going to say about it. And so he tells her no. And so she gets a little perturbed because she's like, you're willing to let people die because of this? I don't know if it's because she just dealt with that with Kale, but she is quick to call him on that. She is quick to call him on his loyalty to somebody who doesn't deserve it, but she was not that quick to call Kale on it.
Yeah, I think Celaena's experience with everything she went through as a kid, her sense of urgency is just highly sensitive. Like, she has experienced everything. She knows everything that's going on back in the main continent. And so she sees like the same kind of shadows appearing here. So she is like not even playing around at this point. She's just like, we need to act now and calling anybody out. These three entities that are not defective that come to fight there, they're led by a General Narok. Back on the main continent, Kaol and Adian find out that General Narok has been sent across the sea to Wendlin to wreak havoc, basically.
Yes, they are wreaking all kinds of havoc, and Celaena is not down for it. I'm going to go back to her and Rowan's interactions there, where she asks him to help, get his friends to come, and he tells her no. And she is just not happy with him. And there's a part where he just tells her he doesn't want her to look at him with disgust. And she's basically like, well, then do something. There's people dying and you're willing to let that happen. But you see Rowan started to care about Celaena because he doesn't want her to look at him like that. And then you also see Celaena started to care about him because there's a part where it says she wants him.
Which, on that note, start paying attention because you get these little fun glimpses of Rowan and Celaena in the, I don't know what this is called, Mistward kitchens and stuff like that. But there's scenes that describe like some of the kitchen staff eyeing Rowan and things like that. And then like Celaena just being enraged and filled with jealousy that these people would dare to even look at Rowan.
Well, and you get the her warring on herself because she is jealous of them. But then she's like, well, I don't have a reason to be jealous. We're not together. And then she's also playing with her ring that Kale gave her and facing the guilt for her jealousy over this guy when she still feels the way she feels about Kale, and her just being torn because of her feelings there too.
Yeah, there's a lot of bonding moments between Rowan and Celaena.
So we find out that these creatures that are about to attack this outpost are actually the Volg. They have been let back in and they are doing as the king wanted them to do, causing havoc, and they are about to attack this little outpost. And so all of the Demi-Fae and Celaena and Rowan are trying to stop this and trying to get out and trying to do their best to survive. And so they reach out to the rulers of Wendlin and ask them for some help, but they can't send help because the king has started another battle and that is drawing them. So this little outpost is on its own because Rowan won't ask his friends to help, and the rulers aren't able to give them help. So they're trying to figure out a way to, do their best. So they do. And in doing so, Celaena comes up with a plan. And so she is going to fight the darkness that surrounds the Vogue with her fire. She keeps Rowan inside to help fight the armies that are getting through the tunnel because they had a person let their secrets out to the Vogue because they were afraid. And so this person told them, kind of where their weak points are, let the Vogue in. So not the Vogue really, because it's the army of the king that is getting in. The Vogue are out there fighting Celaena. The army is getting in. So Celaena tells Rowan to go help them. And she's like, I will do my best to save as many lives as possible, and kind of leaves him with the impression that she is also planning to come back. But Celaena is not. She knows that she is not going to be able to beat them. And she knows that this is going to be kind of her last stand. And so she goes out there, and then Rowan's boys show up. And she sends them in to help Rowan because she knows he's not going to be able to hold off this whole army either. In doing so, I forgot his name, but Kitty Cat Boy looks at her just a little second longer, and he understands that she knows what sacrifice she's about to make by going outside of the wards of this outpost. But she does it anyway, and she goes out there and she is fighting the Vogue and just being a fucking badass.
Yes, I love Rowan's cadre. It's like two twin wolves, the mountain lion, which is Gavriel, I think is his name. And then there's this towering hunk of a man. Lorcan is his name. And Rowan kept saying that I can't ask them. And also that they are unpredictable, which we haven't really seen yet why they are unpredictable. But there is a scene when they go to beseech Maeve and, help Rowan get out of his stuff with the blood oath. And we see that they are all blood sworn to Maeve. And Maeve has this power because she is tied to them where she can ask them anything and they physically cannot lie to her or hide anything from her. They will just word vomit the truth to her.
They also can't physically not do what she says. So she can make them do physical acts too.
Yes, it's a very innate compulsion wherever in the world they are. They have to just listen to her, and that's pretty fucked up. And Rowan has the foresight to be like, okay, Celaena, don't tell me any of this stuff, because if it comes down to it, I am going to have to tell the queen, and I don't think that this is a good idea. So just keep this information from me. I don't want to hear it. And we see how that kind of helps break the oath and everything toward the end, I believe, which is such a great scene.
We see during this battle, again, these Vogue take your worst memories and they just feed on those. They feed on your fear. They feed on your misery. And so that's what they are doing to Celaena as she's trying to fight them, is feeding on those. And so then we see Celaena's memory that just shattered her, that turned her into the person that she is, and put the fear in her that she did not want to be the ruler of her kingdom, that she didn't deserve it. And this memory involves a lady named Lady Miriam. And Lady Miriam was her mother's lady in waiting and the lady that her mother trusted with her. And so after Celaena's parents are killed, Lady Miriam is the one who takes her and tries to help her get away and tries to help her. And we see the next day after her parents died that she is in this little house and they get attacked again. And Lady Miriam tells her to escape and that she will buy as much time as she can, and ends up being murdered. And that is the moment that she cannot get over, is that this lady died for her.
Yeah, and Lady Marian had a daughter of her own, a lead. Sacrifice goes a long, long way with Celaena. It is never forgotten. And even though those she sacrifices for would never have her keep that over her eyes or hold it over her forever, she does it to herself. Very emotionally scarring for her.
Her love language is also sacrifice. That is how you tie Celaena Sardathian to you, is show her that you love her enough to sacrifice for her. We also see a very important part in that she had a necklace on her when she escaped, a necklace that her mother told her would keep her safe. And we hear throughout the book, or the end of the book, that that necklace is the reason that Celaena Sardathian is alive. It did protect her. And then we also figure out that it's a very ancient necklace that was passed down through her family, starting at Brannon. And we find out more about Brannon when Celaena ends up beating the Vogue, and she goes back to meet Maeve to get her answer, because she is now worthy in the eyes of Rowan. She has tapped into her magic. She has done everything possible with that magic. And so we go and see Maeve. And Maeve is a queen bitch. She's a bitch queen. She is all of the things. She is a horrible, horrible, like, person, whatever the hell she is. And she, as Sandra mentioned, makes Rowan and his boys tell her what happened and all of the secrets that they have on Celaena, and also makes the boys whip Rowan because he chose to side with Celaena in that battle, which just shows she's just like an evil, evil creature. But we hear a little bit more about her past too, because she had a love who died, and that love died in that cave that we found earlier, that the snake that Rowan did not know, or sea creature or whatever, was in that cave. And we see that Brannon was this guy's best friend, and they figured out that Maeve was trying to get the 3 keys for herself so that she could wield all of the power, not so that she could put it back together, not so that she could keep people safe, but so that she could wield the power. And Brannon and his friend were against this. And Maeve killed her, the love of her life. She just killed him, straight up killed him. Didn't care enough about that. She killed him. And that sword that they found in that cave was his. And so when Maeve sees that, she's like, I want that sword. And Celaena's like, no, bitch, you can't have it. Like, you don't deserve it. You killed him. Like, you're done. And you see Maeve losing her cool a little bit because she wants it and she can't have it. And very few times, I feel, has Maeve been told no and not just beaten her way into a yes. But you see Celaena telling her no, and then you also see Celaena threatening her, because Celaena's like, I will set the world on fire. Like, you don't know what I can do. I will set the world on fire. And Maeve's like, well, everything's built of stone. You get the sense that Maeve did that so that people couldn't set it on fire. And Celaena's like, I can burn everything else. Like, your castle might be safe, but your people, everything else is not going to be safe. And she does it. She sets the world on fire and shows Maeve, because Maeve wanted a demonstration of her powers. And she's like, is that enough? Like, the world is on fire now. Is that enough for you? And Celaena has enough power over her magic that it's not actually burning the people, but she could make that a possibility. She's threatening her too. And so you see a very, very like kick-ass moment between Maeve and Celaena owning her power that she had been running from her whole life.
Yeah, Celaena is very good at anticipating what's most important to people and just like capitalizing on that. So like the sword, she knows it's not exactly the sword that Maeve is after. It's like what's hidden in the sword, which is the ring between Maeve and her dead love of her life, which it makes you wonder if Maeve doing that kind of act has just further poisoned her and made her a more just toxic, not good person. So with the ring, now that Celaena knows how to push Maeve's buttons and what it is that she's after, she puts her to the test and is like, okay, if you want to make this deal, like, we will give you this ring in exchange for Rowan's freedom, basically. And so Maeve reluctantly says yes. And it's a very, I don't want to say it's a sensual moment between Rowan and Celaena when this blood oath is being broken, but I mean, Maeve is just very flippant about it and just like, okay, whatever, like, it's done, blah, blah, blah. But then Rowan turns around and he decides to make an oath to Celaena, which she does not want at all, because that's just not who she is. She doesn't like people being obligated to serve her. And so he kind of takes the oath and he takes her blood. Like, it involves like them exchanging blood, right?
Yeah, he drinks her blood.
Yeah, so kind of vampire-y.
Yeah.
But basically, through this oath and Rowan promising himself to her, which, by the way, this wasn't mentioned. When she overtakes all of the Vogue, which are the princes of this otherworldly creatures that have been wearing the skin, basically, of these poor men for the king of Otterland, who thinks that he's going to be able to control them with these stupid black collars. we'll see how that works out for him in the long run. So during the battle at Mistward, whenever Celaena's getting her ass handed to her because these memories are consuming her, all of the dead bodies in the past that they stumbled upon in the woods and stuff of Demi-Fae and other people, they were husks, just hollowed out. These Vogue have just been sucking the living life out of everything, the memories, everything, to make themselves more powerful. Celaena is dimming. Her light is dimming. She's being overtaken by them, but it's because Rowan comes out and bonds with her. Like, they end up having that rare connection where they can feed each other power, like share that power. He ends up kind of giving up his power to her, and she just like takes it. Karanam or something is like the word for it, whatever.
You see their connection growing a lot through this book, which is cool. Maybe she's finally going to get a guy that like is worthy of her.
Is he still Prince Asshole, or is he getting better?
He's getting better. Like he grew on me a lot when he stood up to Maeve, because he showed that he cared about her at least a little bit through this book. But then at the very end, when he stands up to Maeve and he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. I mean, to the best of his ability, because he still did. But he stood up to her. And he cared about the people, and he cared about Celaena enough to call his friends there, knowing that they were going to get their asses handed to them because of it. He knew he was going to get whipped. He knew he was going to get in trouble. But he did it anyway because he cared about her. And again, I have a love language of sacrifice. And that was a sacrifice on his part to show her that he cared about the things that mattered to her and about her. So yes, he grew on me. So the end of this book is just battle, 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 battle. Right? And so we move on from the battle with the Vogue to the battle with Maeve. And then and it's not really a battle, but it's a battle of like will and whatever. But then we move on to a battle of the witches. And we see the witches having their, I don't remember what it's called, but
war
games.
Like
where the war games where they pick the wing leader. And they're going through their war games. They're pitched against each other and trying to they have to capture an egg from the other witches groups and bring it back without having their egg captured. And so Manon and the 13 are clearly winning because they are the best. And we see the Yellowlegs, Iskra do basically what Grave did during one of the champion battles, which is cheat. And she pushes the heir of I think it's the Blue Bloods. She has her wyvern attack Keely. And you see that Keely and Petra having the bond very similar to Manon and Abraxos, where Keely is there, she's down for Petra, and Petra is down for Keely. And so they are fighting for each other to make sure that they survive this. And Manon is seeing this. And Manon, again, we see her good side coming out, even though she has been pushed her whole life to not have a good side. We see it coming out because she is not okay with this. And she goes to help, but Keely's already falling. Keely's already very, very hurt. Keely's not going to survive. Petra is stuck on her, and Petra is also falling to her death. And you see Abraxos and Manon go after them. And they end up being able to save Petra, and Keely basically gives her life so that Petra can be saved. And you see this, there's a pivotal moment in this where Keely lets Abraxos land on her basically so that they can get Petra off of her and save her. And then Keely hits the bottom, and you know that she's dead and not coming back, but you see Petra surviving this. And then you see the fallout, because Manon does get to be wing leader, and you see that the other covens, or whatever they're called, having respect for her, except for, Iskra's and Manon's grandma, because Manon's grandma's like, what the fuck are you doing helping other people? You're not supposed to help other people. What the hell?
Nothing she can do. But
the rest of them are very, very happy that she helped. And so you see that she is now wing leader, and she now, I have to assume, has a little bit more backing from the other covens for what is probably going to happen for the witches later on. I'm just hoping that they can come together a little bit more than they currently are, because I have a feeling there's going to be a battle with the king, or a battle that they're going to take part in.
Probably not with the Yellowlegs, because, you got Baba Yellowlegs, and I have an Iskra bitch who's just whispering in her wyvern's ear to attack poor Keely and just not being a good person. But like the fact that Manon, after all of this, and like does this heroic act and saves Petra and is titled wing leader, like her grandmother is still just not happy about it. And doesn't she punish her for doing that? Or is that the red cloak?
Well, the punishment she gets is the red cloak. The punishment is she gets to see the Croken witch, and her grandmother basically tells her, oh, you get to kill her and take her cloak. And the grandmother knows the whole time that that's not what she wants. And then we go to another battle. Not really a battle, but it's kind of a fight in a sense. So we go back to the king. And the king has called a meeting, and the meeting is going to consist of Sorsha, Dorian, and Chaol, because the king has figured out some shit. Aedion, Dorian, Chaol, and Sorsha are having this audience with the king, and the king basically tells them, hey, I figured some shit out. What he's figured out is Sorsha has been sending letters to her friend, and this friend is a part of the rebellion. So Sorsha has been giving out information to the rebellion. And Dorian didn't know about this, but Dorian is so in love with her that he is like down. He's like, do not hurt her. I will do whatever you want me to do. Do not hurt her. And the king is a douchebag. So the king's like, I don't really care. You're going to do what I want anyway. And he basically has Sorsha decapitated. He has her killed. So we see that Sorsha is now dead and Dorian is losing his cool. And the king says, I also know that Aedion's ring isn't really functioning, and like calls out Aedion for his throwing parties but not attending the parties, and he's going places that nobody knows where he's going, and basically implies that Aedion is a part of the rebellion too. And Chaol's like, wait, I'm going to tell you what's really going on. And about throws his hat into the ring of, no, I was a part of this too, and like trying to get Aedion out of trouble. But Aedion is not having that because he knows that if Celaena loses her friend, she will not be happy with him. So Aedion's like, yep, I am. He throws the ring at the king and he's like, I am a part of the rebellion. You're a bastard, basically. Like, who wouldn't be against you? And so Aedion gets himself put into jail and is awaiting his fate because the king wants to allow Celaena to be able to come back before he puts Aedion to death. And so you see that. And then you see the king turning against Chaol as well. And in doing that, Dorian loses it even further and lets his magic go. And he attacks his father with his magic. And his father's like, I knew it. I knew you had it. And then puts one of those collars on him. But Chaol was able to escape while Dorian was fighting his dad. And he goes to the rebellion location, which is Celaena's house. And he is telling Rin that, hey, you need to escape. And Rin figures out that the healer that Dorian was in love with is the woman that has been passing him notes this whole time.
The throne scene with Sorsha was like the hardest scene to read in this book. Besides the Abraxos torture scenes and stuff, those were a little tough to read because he's a helpless creature. Yeah, it has Dorian like reaching for Sorsha's body while he's just like enthralled to his father now. It's just so heartbreaking. And just the fact that the king is going to use Aedion as just bait to get Celaena back there. I hate the king so much.
Well, the fact that he's going to use his son too. Like,
I mean,
he doesn't really care. He doesn't care about anything.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, he suspected Dorian had power all along, meaning if this goes the direction of what we have seen with General Narok and the other three that are collared, which I'm scared for Dorian because I love him so much. I love his carefree, just easygoing crown prince, wants to do the right thing. And now I worry.
Yes. And Dorian is such a good guy. He cares. He cares so deeply.
If it was Chaol who found out his girlfriend was spying for the rebellion cause, like he would have like had a conniption about it. But Dorian was literally just like, I still love you. I would like give up everything to be with you. And how that scene went back with like Sorsha being turned in because of that bitch boss that like is always ragging on her and stuff. It's like the king has spies everywhere. So it just makes you wonder about anything else.
But I'm with Sandra. I'm worried for Dorian. I'm hoping Celaena makes it back and she's able to save Adian, because before we knew that this, like, I'm happy that the king is using him as bait, because the alternative was that he was just going to kill him right there. And I'm like, please no, do not kill him. Like, kill Chaol. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm not happy about that. I don't want him to kill Chaol. Don't come at me. But like, not Adian. Not Adian. And so I'm hoping they all three make it out. Like, again, don't come at me. I hope that they all three survive, but I hope that Dorian and Adian survive more than I hope that Chaol does.
But like, even Dorian was thinking about the dog even. He was like, oh, gotta pack up Fleetfoot, you know? He's just like, that is like
well,
where
Chaol
he's
did
at.
that.
That was
too. Chaol like got Fleetfoot and put him on his back and fought Rin, because Rin was like, no, like, leave the dog out. That's gonna be too, like, you know, people are going to notice that we have a dog, right? And Chaol's like, I'm not leaving the dog. The dog is her, like, best friend. Like, I'm not leaving the damn dog. Like, the dog is coming with us. And so he even fought Rin about the dog. So he did have some brownie points, but he's still third on my list. He's still third.
Yeah, still would have been fine if he died in this book. But
like, I don't want him to die. I'm fine with him being alive. He's still third on my list. If somebody has to die, like, it's him. Like, I'm playing fuck, murder, marry, or whatever. What is that? Kill? What is that one?
Fuck, marry, kill.
Yeah, fuck, marry, kill. And Chaol's on my kill list right now. So
I feel like he's always going to be kill on your list for a
well, I don't know.
There.
Maybe he'll grow, because, like, I mean, Rowan's growing on me too. Like, maybe he will become a better person, and then I'll have a harder decision on who to kill. I mean, somebody's still getting killed, because that's the game. But like, I'll have a harder decision. So we end. Celaena is coming back. She has no clue what's just happened with the king yet. The king is hoping she comes back because he wants to show her his power in killing Adian. And she is coming back, and she has a quote that I wrote down because it hit. It hit. And her quote is, I am going to rattle the stars. And I loved it. And then we're reading Assassin's Blade next, guys. And I'm not going to get to read the book that's next in the chronological order until after Assassin's Blade. So I'm going to have to wait to see her rattle these stars and wait for the king to get his ass beat, hopefully, in such a severe way that he is crying to his mama. Like, that's my hope.
I'm not gonna say anything about that, but I will say I was proud. Chaol was showing signs of life at the end of this book when he stood at the docks and threw his family sword into the river or the sea or whatever the hell you want to.
Was it his family sword, or was it the one with the captain's eagle? Sword? I think that's the captain's sword. I took that as him, like, being like, you know what, fuck it. You guys are on your own. Like, I'm not loyal to you anymore. You just screwed that up, and I'm going to be loyal to who I think is right.
Yeah.
So yes, there were signs of life, because I took that as like him just being like, fuck you, like, you're a bastard.
The very end, yeah.
And he does even make a comment about like how he is loyal to Dorian, and Dorian is his king, not the king.
There's all these conversations about King of Otterland, Queen Maeve, now Aelin. At the end of the book, she's like, my name is Aelin, Ash River Galathinius, and I will not be afraid. She's like fully embracing her legacy. Notably, still no Duke Parrington, still no word of Caltaine Rompier, still no word of Rolland. There is a huge question mark on what's going on back in Moreth. But we do know the Ferrying Gap is near Moreth.
And we do know that the people in the Ferrying Gap have some similarities to what she knew was happening to the Duke and Roland and Caltaine. So.
With like the headaches and people getting
and the wings
sick
flapping and getting sick and all of that stuff. So I have a feeling there's a link somewhere there. But yes, we do see a lot of people coming into themselves, their power, and finally embracing it. Like we see, like Chaol came into it. Like he's still third on my list, but he did come into his own. And he's like, no, I'm going to save the dog and all of these things. He's going with Dorian. He's going to try and help Dorian. We see Celaena coming into it, and we see Dorian embracing his magic.
Yes, even though he'll be collared going forward.
But I am wondering how effective that collar is going to be on him, because the other people who we've seen in the collar have not been able to use their magic. So again, I think he's slightly different than everybody else who has a lineage of magic.
Yes, we do know that his power is raw and unformed, so that might help him. And also, as Sarah mentioned, since we are not immediately jumping into Queen of Shadows, we are backtracking to the Assassin's Blade to kind of get the whole backstory. There has been huge, just empty spots in how, every moment that Celaena thinks about with her past, and especially around this Sam character and the King of Assassins, Arabin. We are going to see all of that play out. So next week on Tuesday, we're going to release part 1 of our discussion for The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas, and it is going to cover the first 3 short stories or novellas in that collection. And we are going to see if some of this stuff that Celaena has referenced in the past, whether it's like she references like the desert a lot and the mares, and just I think she's even mentioned like pirate lord stuff like a few times. Like Sarah J Maas just sprinkles this in little books, and it's like now we finally get a chance to like pause before going into the next book, because it's going to be nonstop from Queen of Shadows onward. It's just going to be like one big thing after another. So it's almost a good little break to reflect on her past, because now going forward, Celaena is Aelin 110%. Anywho, we hope you were able to follow that discussion of the second part of Heir of Fire. And tune in next week. We will see you then. Bye. Bye.